I guess on a personal note, any New Year's resolutions that you can share?
I think it's going to be all about, systematically going through what we are doing in marketing and creating an AI-powered marketing function.
Yeah.
Not just for the benefits of the Forge. I think it's a transferable skill that, will take me to all sorts of directions in my life.
I did pretty well with Peloton at the first 6 months of the year.
I knew it was going to be about Peloton. Welcome to the Persuasion Game, the Forge's podcast all about persuading consumers and growing brands in the modern age. As many of you have become accustomed to, each episode you hear the Forge interview industry leaders about how they use persuasion to influence their consumers and convince their stakeholders to drive their business forward. But the tables have turned. My name is Izzie MacDonald, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing The Forge. For those of you who I haven't met, I am part of the Global Insights team at PepsiCo, and I head up our human and culture capabilities in service of brand building. And I have had the pleasure of working with The Forge for a number of years. Over 2025, every other week, The Forge has brought us thought-provoking and inspiring podcasts. So we thought, what better way to start the new year than to take the opportunity to hear from the team directly on some of their reflections from last year, but also some of those questions that they've been thinking about as they prepare for 2026. So, welcome Adam, welcome Laura.
Thank you.
That was brilliant, Izzie. I love it. So good.
Really
How's it
good.
feel being in the hot seat?
Very warm.
bad.
So before I jump into some of the slightly more juicy marketing and strategy questions that I have for you today, I first of all wanted to give the listeners a little bit of an opportunity just to get to know you a little bit better. I mean, we do work in insights after all. So who are those people behind the mics? So I guess to get us started, I'd love to hear why you wanted to get into insights and strategy and what attracted you to the agency world.
Oh, okay. I'll jump in. So I grew up with a dad and a stepdad who both worked in advertising. And the one bit of advice they said to me was, don't go into advertising. So, of course, my one act of rebellion was, maybe I will. But actually, I'm really interested in contexts. It was a big part of my degree. What's the context for how people feel, for how people behave? And for me, I just thought brands were a really interesting sort of microcosm of what people care about. And often that's informed by the culture or their values or where they are in their lives. So it wasn't so much advertising so much as brands. And I started my career at Unilever, which I think was an unbelievable training in all the aspects of a brand. I absolutely loved it. But I very soon realised that I was a specialist rather than a generalist. I think one of my managers quite kindly pointed that out to me. So I went over into planning when I was about 26, and I've just loved it. I've just loved it ever since.
Love it. So started off as rebellion, but then
hard conformism, story of my life.
And what advice would you give your children? Would you tell them to go into branding and marketing and advertising?
It really bothers me how much I'm going to echo my parents' advice, yeah.
And how about you, Adam?
So similar to Laura, my dad also worked in marketing,
No way.
more on the B2B side, and he worked for himself. And I'd say it probably is that bit of B2B marketing which crosses into sales. So it's in my blood somewhere to kind of be in this world. However, I don't think it's strictly true to say that he kind of led me into it. I chose marketing as a degree mainly to keep my options open rather than to specialise in marketing. It kind of gives you a route into business. And I first, straight out of uni, got a sales job, which I was okay at, but I just didn't really have the stamina to continue it as a career. It required quite a lot of like one-dimensional doing the same thing over and over. And I had an agency come in to actually buy some of the market research that we were selling. And it just sounded like a really cool, interesting kind of world that I didn't really understand. And when I found out more about what they were doing, it was a brand strategy agency. I thought I just need to go and get involved in that world. And I got myself a job at a brand strategy company and sort of took a business development role there and went from there. So yeah,
really
it was a kind of roundabout way to get there. But yeah, it's such an interesting place. Lots of change every day, lots of variety, which keeps my ADHD brain ticking over well.
And is there anything you wish you had known now you've been in the industry for such a long period of time?
I mean, again, I would say I should have known this because if you have parents in advertising in the 90s, this was not unexpected, but, you know, it is turbulent. I think in marketing, you're at the vanguard of a lot of stuff. You feel things first. You feel it financially. So, you know, I was working through the financial crisis and, you know, that's obviously the first thing to go for a lot of brands. So that kind of chopping and changing. But also I think you at the front end of a lot of stuff that is coming in, you know, whether that's AI or whether that's sort of sustainability, you know, these big sort of macro forces, often they're landing on your desk before anyone else. And honestly, I love that about our job too. But it can also kind of sometimes make it feel like a bit of a roller coaster rather than like a steamboat.
Keeps us on our toes.
Yeah, absolutely. We're never bored. We're never bored.
Yeah.
I think for me, I mean, there's nothing really that has surprised me that I think is overwhelmingly negative and has sort of scared me off. However, I probably didn't consider just quite how much you have to make your own career.
Yeah.
Like, so you're not going to have a career, especially in the agency world, you're not going to have a career laid out for you. You've got to find ways to add value and do more. And you're kind of always making little bets as you go as to like, maybe this will be a thing that the agency will need more of in the future.
And one day we'll find that. One day we will. We're going to keep looking.
Yeah, you have no idea how many failed experiments there were before this podcast.
Okay, and so thinking more along those lines, like as you know, think about the last sort of year and the year ahead, anything that you would kind of stop, start, continue based on all of the kind of lived experience and hindsight that you have?
So I think I'm going to stop some of the things I do. So I think when you work in business development in an agency, it's very easy to collect things and do many, many things. And I think once a year almost, you need to have a look at all the things you're doing and go like, what is actually working here and what isn't? And I think we're getting closer and closer to a model which, you know, underpinned by the podcast, has lots of kind of content and kind of the flywheel of various different topics that we can talk about. But I just want to make sure that the ones that we are focusing on are the ones that are actually going to like move the needle of the business. So I think there's some things I need to have a look at and stop there. Do you want to do stop before I continue?
Or before you start?
So my background is more qualitatively driven. And I think it's really interesting. Everyone has their own algorithm on LinkedIn and you see the kind of responses that people have to whatever's going on in the year. And I saw a lot of comments about AI and the sort of issues with AI in a sort of more qual-driven perspective. And I think it came from a really good place, but I think that defensiveness is not helpful. It's a bit like saying, you know, we have a really, really good candle, so we don't need electricity. It's like, no, we need to start working with these things. We need to understand the capability and to see what it can do to augment our capabilities. And then, you know, there will be bits where we absolutely need to be more human and we kind of need to just adopt a kind of adaptive rather than defensive strategy. And I think maybe I had to go on a bit of a journey with that because your initial instinct is, this isn't good enough. You know, this isn't quite what I wanted it to be. It's like, but it is here and it is going to learn and grow so much faster than you. So yeah, just having that, having a more open and less defensive philosophy, I think, around things like AI.
Just building on that point, I think the fear is when something changes that it's all going to change all at once and you're going to be irrelevant overnight.
Yeah.
And actually that's not true. Like these things take a long time. Maybe quicker with AI, it's coming quite quickly, but they take time to kind of fully filter through and to kind of go through and work out where it's adding value and where it isn't. And I think you just need to be one of those people that's working out those things rather than one of the people on the sideline, you know, kind of complaining about it. I think if you lean into it, you know, you are going to find the bits that you can bring and the bits that it can bring, and together, you know, you'll be a kind of a better version. I mean, in the long run, who knows what's going to happen? But I think in the short term, I think absolutely it's about leaning in. Yeah,
makes sense. Anything else from your side on the start or even the continue?
Yeah, I think continue being open-minded and start doing Peloton again because I've really dropped off that.
Or come spin with me.
yeah, exactly. Deal.
Yeah, I miss our kind of weekly chat about the Peloton. Yeah.
It's definitely turned into a weekly event, which is unfortunate. Very unfortunate.
Okay, so I want to now think a little bit more about the future 2026. And Adam, I've got a bit of a question for you, if that's all right. So thinking more just about the kind of agency models that we have, what do you think the future of the agency model is going to look like? Obviously, with that kind of ambition to sustain growth, continue having that advantaged offering.
I'm going to caveat this answer a bit. So First of all, the Forge has done a lot of thinking about this in the last kind of 6-12 months.
Yeah.
I think we can only really speak for the specific agency type that we are. I wouldn't be able to comment on like what's going to happen in media or creative agencies or and all the other millions of agencies out there. So if we kind of define our agency as being like an insight-led consumer strategy business that also does innovation, so thinking about insight, innovation, strategy, I think where we sit further upstream, I think clients are going to increasingly because creating content is much quicker now and creating stuff to share is much quicker. It means the time that you save there, you can spend on the embedding, the creating impact, the driving change. I think all projects are going to eventually be viewed as like behavior change exercises rather than strategic deliverables that exist in like a PowerPoint.
Yeah.
So I think that's the journey that we're on as a business, is to think about where AI is helping to optimize our workflows. It's what can we do with the time that is kind of released to create a much bigger impact for our clients.
Yeah.
And that's the direction of travel I think we're going to see.
You're right. I think a lot of brands are asking really quite existential questions of themselves at the moment, like, does marketing drive growth? All these kind of assumptions are now being put on the table. Or, the things that were given are kind of now not there.
Yeah.
And that's really exciting for us in terms of what does that partnership look like? How can we actually really collaborate with you without going into this is the process and this is what's always worked and it's about being good at the process. It's really about identifying those big questions and finding new ways in.
And I guess then, Laura, thinking about the people on the receiving end of all of this fantastic thinking and content and strategic ideas. Do you have a perspective on what you think some of the winning almost ingredients will be that will help persuade people in 2026?
I think it's actually going to be quite easy to have an acceptable level of good from everywhere. And so really it's about what makes things exceptional. And that's a kind of challenge for all of us. And I think if you sort of say, well, look, the playing field's been leveled, and actually the access to data and the ability to create something that's sort of good enough is there, then we really need to interrogate in that sort of pre-work, during the work and after the work, what is our role in kind of really augmenting that? I think from a consultancy point of view, it is having a really deep understanding of our clients' businesses and what they are trying to achieve within the project, but also within the wider context of growth. How does that contribute to the overall growth? And frankly, even things like the personal element, like where are the pain points? Why might someone not agree with that? How what can we understand to help deliver a process that gets everybody in a direction that we think is in the best interest of the business?
Yeah.
I do think there's also a build though to the sort of the work itself. And I had a great experience working with Joe, who heads up our analytics this year. And he does a huge amount of quant data. And the elegance of some of the questions that he was asking in our quant and the way it sort of complemented some of our strategic hypotheses was like really great. And I think that's just also something to bear in mind, is it's not like we're just going to sort of set things free and go, right, now let's just go and automate it and we'll just blindly accept what comes back.
Yeah.
I think we really need to be interrogating, steering things as they come through, and making sure that we're not just kind of going, oh, it's so overwhelming. There's so much, there's so much data from quant, from big data, from AI that we just kind of blindly accept that. We really kind of constantly pressure test and evaluate it. And then, of course, I think whatever we do to land things has to be exceptional as well. And that is about like storytelling. I mean, I would say that, wouldn't I? But, it's like...
it's about podcasting, actually.
Yeah.
It's about people with English degrees. It is about trying to find a way to capture imagination and to capture a sense of excitement. And that is really where it's sort of art and science, isn't it? Because you have to be data backed. That's an absolute given. You know that more than anyone with Pepsi. But if you don't have that human element, if it doesn't feel true, then it's just an exercise in filling in various boxes, and people will just do it and then they'll put it on a shelf and it won't lead to any change. When people really feel like something in their bones and they get, oh, I feel like I see that example everywhere now. Like, now someone's pointed that out to me. I heard my mum talking about it. That's when you know that something is really getting traction and there's actually like genuine excitement about what it might mean, not just for your category, but actually just beyond your category and, in the world in general. And I think there's so many tools now. I don't think we're going to see that many PowerPoint decks that are sort of finite solutions. It's going to be workshopping things. It's going to be creating bespoke solutions. It's going to be videos. It's going to be whatever way we can keep partnering, keep building that learning and that excitement through a business.
And I know that we've spoken a little bit already about AI, and I know you've already had some wonderful guests on your podcast talking about AI and how, this is an opportunity to kind of transform the function, help us kind of do things differently and really take a step back and think about what our future could look like. I'd love to get your perspective on, throwing AI into the mix and kind of how that will affect kind of these winning ingredients that you're talking about. But also then, in addition to that, how we still remain close to the people that we're trying to serve and really maintaining a lot of that kind of human-centric thinking into our work.
So we had someone come on the podcast, I'm not going to mention their name just in case they reveal any secrets, but they were talking about they were reimagining the way that innovation would work in the age of AI.
Yeah.
And they turned the innovation process on its head. So rather than getting to testing at the end where you test your ideas, they were testing at the very beginning. So generating AI ideas, testing them with synthetic respondents to have a starter for 10, which is probably like 60% right, 70% right, 80% right, that then they can use human firepower to craft and work on before putting them in front of real people. And that AI bit at the beginning, accelerating that front bit of the funnel, is just, it's a game changer. It just changed everything.
Thinking then about the industry and what role like strategy is going to play within that. If you had to redesign it for tomorrow and our future is in your hands, what is that going to look like, do you think?
Well, I'm definitely keeping people just before we go any further. Like they will be in the mix. So I think it's some of that stuff I was saying earlier. I think clients are going to increasingly be interested in outcomes.
Yeah.
So being able to deliver outcomes and optimizing your business to be able to do that is going to be the most important. They're not going to, I think in the future, they're not going to place as much emphasis or budget or time in that bit in the middle where we're trying to come up with the answer. They're going to put their emphasis on the bit at the end where you're kind of landing it in the business and helping them to grow. So I think organizations are going to have to find out those bits of their workflows, which can be optimized, removed, accelerated, and then work out like which bits at the end of the process can be delivered. I think also there is this idea, strategy is one of those woolly words.
Yes.
So if we could change something tomorrow, it would be absolute clarity over like what expectations are, like what outcomes do you want, what deliverables do you need? If you're talking about a portfolio strategy, is it the same way that we define a portfolio strategy? If you're asking for an innovation idea, is it the same way that we? So that's just one of those things I think that if we were playing Room 101, we'd put loose definitions of strategy into Room 101, because I think that it causes challenges in trying to get alignment and clarity.
Yeah. Do you know what one of the things I love about that reflection is? I think across the industry, we'll often see momentum shifting and happening around these kind of like big, really juicy words. And we're like, yeah, let's do more of that. Rightly so. But to your point, so often before we jump in, we need to be really clear on what does it mean? Because if we don't know what it means, we can't solve for it. And I think I've been really fortunate with all the work that I've done in capability building. One of my favorite things to do is go, culture, love it. Couldn't be more behind how critical it is in the context of brand building. But what does it mean?
100%.
And because if we don't know what it means, then we can't solve for it effectively and in a meaningful way. And I love that reflection in terms of to make it work harder for us and to be really clear and intentional about the value add. Let's be really specific about what we think it is and it can do for us.
Yeah, there's nothing more worrying than a brief where you don't really kind of know what the client means in the brief. And maybe it's a new client that you've not worked with before, so you really don't. And you have a very limited number of questions and interactions to really shake out what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And it gets down to guesswork at some point, and it's inefficient. We get to a point where we don't fully understand what they want. We give them something that's not quite right for them. They don't get the proposal that they want to put in the mix with the other proposals. So yeah, there's definitely some inefficiency in there, which the strategy industry could look to fix.
Yeah. Okay. So then thinking about a lot of the kind of phenomenal work that you're seeing coming out of the industry more generally, and obviously you are able to, get so close to seeing some of the different approaches, processes, or even practices that different clients are adopting. Is there anything that you've witnessed in particular that you would say that is absolutely pivotal for clients to be investing behind in 2026?
We're increasingly seeing clients come to us and asking the actual questions we think they should be asking, in the sense of like, what are we going to be tomorrow? How are we going to grow? What is the future of this category? How do we play a part in the future of this category? I just think those are the questions that are so important right now when you look at like the way that FMCG businesses, other businesses in the economy are performing. And I think the more of those questions that can kind of be shaken out of our clients and answered, the better, because I think we're starting to make some real headway about actually creating growth.
Yeah. And I guess sometimes part of the value that agencies like yourself bring is actually helping to define what those questions even are.
Yes.
So it's not just about receiving the brief and then doing all of the incredible sort of sparkly magic that you do, but it's also going, let's actually help even build what the question is.
And sometimes that will emerge during the course of a project, and I think a mark of a really great relationship with a client, and of course I would say a very good client, is being open to actually, let's redefine the question.
Yeah.
And there's been several projects this year where we've started on something and said, I know you were asking us to solve for this thing, but actually the problem is bigger. And, how much do you want us? Of course, we can still answer that question, but it would be missing, like a huge portion of, and it wouldn't be very future-proofed unless we answered this broader question as well.
Yeah.
And I think just being able to have that conversation and, as we said, not just be so fixed on, no, I asked you this and therefore you need to solve for this, but actually like the question is growth. How do we look at that broader context and answer for that is really critical.
But I think that also shows like such great testament to, when working on projects, constantly keeping an open mind.
Yes.
Versus being quite closed off to what other eventualities like the learnings might take you to.
Yeah.
Like bearing in mind, we're trying to answer really difficult, challenging questions. To therefore, you have to then be open-minded to say, we had no idea that this is where we would get to.
Yeah.
But we're here.
Yeah.
And we've learned this. So what are we now going to do differently? And I think that makes it really exciting.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is the bit before the work, where you're setting the expectations. You're like, what is the question we're really answering? Is that the right question? Should we go internally and like ask a few people whether they need something from this exercise as well? And let's not find that out later.
Yeah.
Have we been given the headspace, the freedom, the psychological safety to ask the big questions?
Yeah.
Have we got a senior sponsor? Like, all of that stuff, I think, is absolutely critical to a successful project. And when you have a great partnership with a client and you've been working with them for many years, you get there.
Yeah.
But accelerating that at the beginning, when you're starting a new relationship, is the difficult bit.
Obviously, as we've mentioned, this is all about partnership together and working on these big challenges together. And obviously, that's all then about how we get the best out of each other.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you have particularly enjoyed, like about working with any of your clients, that helps kind of turn these relationships into partnerships, not just transactional, that we can hear anything more about?
For me, it's the context piece.
Yeah.
And obviously, it depends on the strength and duration of your relationship. But the more you can understand of, this question sits within this context, or because the business is going through this, or this is, a question that's particularly important because of X.
Yeah.
It just helps us shape a personalized solution that is so much better. I think conversely, if you ever get introduced as a vendor, you know where you stand and you're just going to answer that question. But I just think these days people's investment is precious, and really it deserves a bit more than that kind of transactional, well, you asked for this, so I gave you this. I think it needs that human touch to be a bit more augmented.
Probably arguably the most important question I might be asking today, and I have no doubt the listeners are on the edge of their seats for this one. But we're starting the new year. And so I guess on a personal note, any New Year's resolutions that you can share?
I did pretty well with Peloton at the first 6 months
I
of the
knew
year.
it was going to be about Peloton.
So I'm really hoping I can quite literally wipe the dust off it, because it is quite dusty at the moment, and get back in the saddle. And I guess personally, just a reminder to myself to to not get locked down when things feel difficult and go, right, I've got a literal answer to this question. I'm totally in control of it. I think that's going to be something that I actively have to think about. And I think perhaps a lot of us are going to have to actively sort of go, no, stay open, stay curious about it, keep exploring, keep learning, rather than going, these are my tools. Yeah. These are what make me feel safe.
But like recognizing those vulnerabilities and challenging ourselves, that's just what's going to make us better, right? And
exactly. Exactly.
And it's hard.
Yeah.
Because we're human.
Exactly.
How about yourself?
I think it's going to be all about, systematically going through what we are doing in marketing and creating an AI-powered marketing function.
Yeah.
Not just for the benefits of the Forge. I think it's a transferable skill that, will take me to all sorts of directions in my life. Mm-hmm. If you're able to kind of bring the two together and create effective marketing. So that would be my New Year's resolution.
But yeah, I just wanted to say it's been like a total honor to be on your wonderful podcast, a huge fan myself, but also to be able to have the time just to sit here and talk about some of these really like interesting questions and get your reflections and thoughts on it. And yeah, really appreciate your time. And like, thank you so much for such a wonderful and enjoyable conversation.
Izzie, you are one of our most curious, interested and interesting clients. And it is such a pleasure to be, talking about our profession with someone that is so personally interesting and so invested in their job. So thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time for doing this, Izzie. It's been brilliant.
We hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. If you did, we think you'll really enjoy Stephen White of Diageo talking about brand transformation. What kind of principles do you have in mind for how you take on those kind of transformations?
I was always fond of sticky points of view. And what I mean by that is having an outcome in mind that you're trying to shape to, potentially a solution to that outcome, but inviting others to build it with you. And the reason I talk about sticky is if you just go with the wind, then people don't believe that you believe in it. Whereas if you've got a confident point of view around where it is you're trying to shape, but you invite others in to participate and shape that with you, and then you move with them, but at the right pace, then actually it feels like you're owning the journey together, and you kind of co-opt them into solving it, and it becomes part of their story.